I mean, how's it going? How's your quarantine been?
Honestly, it's been pretty chill. With everything going on in the world, I mean, it kind of gets me down. But as far as like personal life and living at home, I mean, nothing has really changed for me and like how I live my workflow. I don't go out often anyway, aside for like tours and grocery shopping.
Well, yeah, I feel you. But I mean, at a certain point, touring gets to be a pretty big part of that, right?
Yeah. So I would say like on average, I've been... aside from like the big tours where I'm just doing consecutive shows, like weeks on end, I was playing on average probably 1 to 2 shows a month for the past like 8 years, and I think that was a really good pacing for me. And what I mean by that is, like, I find myself really comfortable just like being alone, isolated in the studio. I feel like I can think. I feel like I could, think the best. But I think 1 to 2 shows a month where it's like forces me to get out into public, like full force, like ripping me out of my comfort zone, is really, it's really exciting. It's like the thing is like, this happens every time. Right before, like the day before that I'm going to fly out, I'm like, damn it, I am just really not feeling this. Like, I have to go to sleep early. My sleep schedule is, I don't have a regular sleep schedule. Some days, like this morning, I only slept for like 4 hours. And then the other day I slept for 13 hours straight. Man. It's very irregular. I don't know how
So is it just random? Like, did you plan to wake up early today or...
I think, well, when I have something like an event that's going to happen, or when I have something on my mind for the next day, I just sleep lighter. That's just kind of how it goes. And that's the thing with touring is like, I usually have to force myself to try to go to sleep early because to catch flights and stuff. And it's just not fun. But like once I'm there, once I'm actually... Usually when it's like I get to the venue like an hour before my set, that's when everything starts to click and I'm just like, okay, now I actually feel awake. Like the entirety of, 24 hours from 24 hours prior to this until now, I just felt weird and like, I don't know, I just get way into my own head and I start to feel like really drained and just kind of disconnected from everything until it's showtime and I'm like, wow. Now it's like I click into place, and it's like everything is great. And so I think that pacing of just playing like 1 or 2 shows a month is a good balance because it's forcing me into a very stimulating social situation with a lot of strangers. So it's like forcing me to get outside my comfort zone and
is that a stressful situation for you? A bunch of strangers in a crowded spot?
It varies. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I think it really comes down to like my mindset and how I'm feeling before I go into it. Sometimes if I'm like feeling really drained, this happens on consecutive show tours where I'll play like a really intense show the night before, and then the night of the next show, I either haven't slept enough or like I just went too hard and I'm really sore and my body has not been ready. There's like this window, like the first show of the tour is like 100% all in. And then the next couple days are just like trying to recover from the first one until I just get used to just getting into the flow of kind of like, not harming, but exerting myself.
I know exactly what I mean, because your body, I don't know if people understand this, especially on those long bus tours where you're out for a month or two. I mean, maybe if you're lucky, the first show you can start at 100%, but you're never at 100% after that. I mean, even if you rest up and take care of yourself for a week, maybe you're back to 80% or so. But it's always kind of just this dragging yourself across the finish line feeling. Yeah.
I mean, I experienced a pretty intense tour back in 2016 with Liquid Stranger for the Rise of Wakan. We didn't even have a bus. We had a van. It was me and like 5 other people.
Doing it band style.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Super tight budget. We had all of our equipment with us. basically just like, renting hotels every night just to sleep for a few hours before we're driving another, 9 hours on the road in all weather conditions. That tour, we played 48 shows, if I recall, 48 shows in 2 months.
Yeah,
so
a ton.
It was so intense. Halfway through, I just completely felt disconnected. Like, I just felt like I was just going through the motions until it was over. I was just like, when is this over? I don't even feel anything anymore. I'm just completely apathetic, which sucks because it's like, I don't want to be like an apathetic asshole of an artist who's, I don't want to be the guy who's just like, yeah, thanks, bye kind of thing. It's like, I want to, because I genuinely feel like gratitude and I'm happy that people are there. But when I'm emotionally just completely drained and not able to actually feel that connection, I would rather just not be involved because I don't want to portray something that I don't, that isn't genuine to me, excluding that time where I'm just not myself,
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And I guess that goes back to kind of just the personality thing and sort of why we do this, right? Because I think for some people, performing is the end all be all. It's like, and I'm that way to a certain extent. Like everything I'm doing, I'm really doing just looking forward to the next time I can, go do a show. That's my favorite thing to do. I like all of it, but the shows are my favorite thing to do. But then, and we don't know each other, so don't let me, map something onto you that isn't correct. But I think of you as a studio guy. I think of you as a very prolific writer, always working on something. And in my experience, sometimes that's people's happy place, right? As opposed to the shows, which maybe they also like, but it's not what they're there for, if you know what I mean.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, throughout my childhood, I grew up as an only child. I had friends at school and stuff, but I went to a private school. So it's like, I just always had like a tight knit group of friends.
You're kind of describing my childhood right now.
You're an only child as well?
Yeah, only child, private school, small, tight-knit group of friends.
Yeah, man. It's interesting. I didn't realize that, a lot of people didn't grow up that way. And I don't find myself a very social person. In fact, I was just used to pretty much like my parents just speaking on my behalf for the majority of my childhood.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the whole social thing I feel like I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to like knowing my own boundaries and knowing how to socialize effectively. I still am pretty awkward as far as socializing goes. But what was I going to say? I guess the turning point was once I've high school, I went to a public school in high school, started to like figure out where I am socially. But playing shows, the first time that I actually like played a show out of state, that was kind of when everything clicked for me. Like I really feared that. Like I had serious anxiety of just being completely independent without, either parents or friends to like help me guide me through this completely unknown, field.
How old were you? What point of the career is this happening?
So this was 2012, and so that means I was 20. Yeah. Or 19 turning 20. And so it was my first time like going to an airport and going on a plane, landing in a new state, all by myself. And before that, I always kind of thought of myself as like, if it gets to that point, I'm just gonna stay doing what works for me, which is just being, pretty much like an internet producer.
Right.
Most of my attention, most of my career before that was just, through social media and stuff. And I was very comfortable with that, particularly because like, I think it was like, it was around that time where I started to get bigger and bigger releases. And I was like, this seems kind of promising. I feel like I could go pretty far with just like staying in the studio. And, but there's a part of me that was like, I know that I need to jump on this opportunity because I probably won't get it later.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I did. I just kind of forced myself. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm probably going to be fine. You know, worst case scenario, I'll call my mom or something, or like someone who can help me figure this out. I didn't have a manager or a booking agent or anything at that time, so I was just doing everything myself. I didn't even know like what I should be charging for shows.
Well, no one tells you, right? That's
Exactly.
the other thing. I remember those days very well because, you know, just some random person contacts you, asks you to come to some random place to play a show, offers you some amount of money that you kind of have no reference, whether it's good or bad. And it's one of these weird things too. Even at the high levels, the pro levels we're at now, it's a funny thing where people really don't feel like they can talk about their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have a point about it, but it's just that I understand to a certain extent. Obviously, people want to sort of protect what they've built, and everyone's working on their own deals and all that. But at the end of the day, I think I fall on the side of just trying to be as transparent as I can, especially with people I know, just because we all know stories, and some of us have stories personally of, you know, getting super undercut or taking a bad deal or just not feeling like you even know who to ask when you have a question like that, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's an interesting thing with the industry, and I guess just like careers in general. I think a lot of people tend to, well, like finances and stuff, that seems to be universally thought of as like a pretty private matter.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you are. And I didn't really realize this until I got management and they started talking to me about like the significance of like why it's important to, you know, keep certain information confidential. Like for instance, I didn't know that, you know, if I wanted to play a show, if I have a show offer and I like everything about the show, I'm really stoked about it. But like if they're lowballing me, if I accept that, then that hurts my potential for other offers at higher prices. And I never would have thought of that. And for the longest time, I'm like, I don't even care. You know, it's not about that for me. But ultimately, at least for the, you know, at least on the management side, you know, it's business. So,
well, sure.
You know.
And I mean, we're bouncing around a little bit. That's actually an interesting point is for you, were there sort of friction points anywhere along the process where, you know, if you get into this sort of not, maybe I don't want to say not caring about, but just not prioritizing the business side of it. But then eventually, I mean, this is a career. It is our job. We do make money off of it and sustain ourselves. Have there been those friction points for you or any kind of just light bulb moments where you sort of realize the importance of, you know, incorporating the business side, being more aware of, you know, all the shit we don't want to be aware of, branding and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, that's such an interesting question. I don't think there was a specific turning point, but there were like periods over time where things started clicking. It's like, okay, I really understand the importance of branding now.
Right.
And as an artist, I mean, I've always kind of just been one to just like, and if you listen to my music from all the way back to like 2010, it's all over the place. Like, I don't stick to a specific genre or anything. I've never really been about that. I just like to make what feels the best to make. And that in itself is kind of a risky branding move, especially in the beginning. Like, if you're starting out as an artist and then you're just making like every style of music, I was just kind of doing it just to see, like, well, for one, to showcase, like, here's all the cool things that I can do here that I like, and kind of a shotgun approach. Like, who's the highest bidder? What kind of scene? You know, I was kind of like waiting for something to happen, not really having a specific trajectory.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, obviously you're able to make a lot of different styles. You like making a lot of different styles. But if I'm hearing you right, at the beginning, it was sort of just putting it all out there and seeing if any one thing caught more traction than the other and sort of letting that dictate which direction you were going to go a bit?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, in the beginning, I released 2010, 2012. 2010 and 2011. I released 2 albums that were just self-published.
Right.
And I got them on, I put them on SoundCloud and got them on like iTunes, and this is before Spotify. Damn. And yeah, they're just a mix of all kind of stuff. Like my first album, there's like some trance in it. There's like a jazzy song. There's just an all acoustic piano song. There's an ambient song. Some chill stuff. It's just like anything. And because that's the thing. Back then, I didn't even know about a music scene. I didn't know
Right.
that there was like a bass music scene or like anything about. I didn't even know the term EDM back then. It wasn't until I think like the next year that I started hearing about EDM, and then dubstep. And then,
Right. So, I mean, before that, if you're not even aware of these things, what gets you into wanting to make this kind of music at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I think the first time that I heard like dance music, like for the floor music, was probably when I was like 8. I think Sandstorm may have been one of the first songs that I ever heard. My cousin brought over a CD of just like a bunch of different music that he just mixed together, and burned me a copy. And there was a bunch of different like styles of electronic music on it that I've never heard before. And yeah, one of them was Sandstorm, and it was like drugs.
Oh man. I mean, to this day, there's a reason Sandstorm is Sandstorm,
Yeah, it's a good song. I don't care, that it's like 20 years old at this point.
Oh, dude. Well, do you know Darude? You ever met him?
Never met him, no.
I had never met him. I had just did an interview with him for this podcast like last week.
Oh,
and
sick.
Dude, he was a great guy. And this was sort of the conversation I was having with him was like, at the time, he just wrote a great song. And what it became, that wasn't even really up to him. That was just some kind of cosmic timing, cultural shift sort of thing. But at the end of the day, that's just a great song.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think creating with that intention, not to appease or stimulate an already existing scene, but to do what feels right for you that you haven't heard before, perhaps, or taking styles and combining them in ways that you haven't heard before or that other people haven't heard before. I think that kind of more often than not, that seems to translate to a more timeless song and has potential for, if it's at the right time, to completely change the trends,
right?
Completely change the scene. And yeah, I think I didn't know that about Darude and Sandstorm. That's really cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, he to hear him tell it, at least. I mean, when he wrote it, he was just like, "Oh, this is a cool song." It's like that was about it. And then it just kind of did what it did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my approach to like my first couple releases.
Well, and so, what's the thought process to not only start off with 2 albums worth of material, but also to just self-release and put it out there? I think for a new artist, maybe less so back then, but especially in the current climate, that would be looked at as a very ballsy move. Yeah.
I still don't quite know why. I mean, I understand more so why. Yeah, that's like it's kind of like a waste. I think people think that it's like, it would be like, you have no foundation to like uphold yourself and to prove that you are, I don't know, like to prove yourself. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure what your perspective is on it, why people would think that, that would be a ballsy move. But for me, it seems like it would just kind of like be a waste.
Sure.
Like, you have no social proof. You're putting a ton of effort into creating a huge piece of work. And it's probably not going to get any traction at all.
So wait, what's a waste then?
It would just be a waste of like time and effort. just as opposed to like taking that and then really, releasing them as singles or like EPs.
So you're saying doing the album thing now would be a waste? Yeah. Oh, I agree with that, and I think that's probably the prevailing wisdom. But then I guess I'm saying you went against that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went against that, not even knowing that I was going against something.
Which is beautiful. Then. I mean, that's when all the coolest shit happens, man. It's like before you know the rules, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just figured artists release albums. Singles seem to be just excerpts of albums. Right. So that's just how I saw it back then. So I grew up in New Jersey, and there was no music scene that I was aware of. Pretty much like only a couple of friends from high school were into electronic music. And there was no real audience for me at all. And that really wasn't the motive. Like I said, I just like making songs. I heard Sandstorm back in the day, and several other like, four to the floor, trancey kind of songs. And that became really inspiring to me. I grew up in a very musical household. My parents were always just playing music throughout the house, all kinds of music. So growing up, it was a lot of, in my early childhood, like a lot of classical music and jazz, and then like alternative stuff, and then kind of just led into, I mean, pretty much anything but like rap, country, and electronic music.
Okay.
So anything,
pretty diverse.
Yeah. Grunge, metal.
Okay. So you had cool parents.
They're cool parents. They're really cool, I would say.
What do they do?
So my dad is an illustrator, and so he pretty much like takes on a bunch of different jobs. He does how would I put it? He writes children's books. He illustrates and writes his own children's books.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they're really good. It's Mark C. Collins.
Okay.
Is his Mark C. Collins illustration.
Nice.
You can check him out. It's really playful, vibrant, expressive, kind of like surrealistic vector illustrations.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and my mom is an interior designer. She actually works for QVC doing set design now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
so both of those jobs, I mean, those are both creative vocations in their own way.
Yeah, definitely are. And they've always been like early in my childhood. My dad he used to paint a lot, and I would always like come into his studio while he was painting, and he would just be playing like all different kinds of music, like mostly like jazz and classical stuff when he's painting.
Right.
And that whole environment, just really bright and vibrant, and just seeing the whole creative process happening, I think was like subconsciously just really inspiring, and also like positively enabling. Basically, they've always been very supportive with my like creative endeavors. Let's just put it that way. With music and with art, because they're artists as well, and it's like they understand the significance of not putting a plug on the creative flow.
Right.
So they were always very supportive of things that I was interested in that were like hobbies and stuff. I was also really interested in science, particularly like electronics and like building circuits. That sort of stuff they were also really supportive in. They just kind of let me explore whatever, as long as it wasn't like, a waste of time. As long as it was like cerebrally stimulating or had some kind of, if I'm getting something out of it that I can take away once I'm done, the thing. They were supportive, and I am so grateful that, I'm blessed with parents like that. Because I understand the implications of that, and being able to explore all those things at such a young age while my mind is developing.
Sure. Well, and I have to imagine too, as you grew into a more serious musician, started looking at it more as a career, there's probably a baseline level of understanding they would have about that. as opposed to, you know, I've talked to plenty of people who the story is just, you know, you tell your parents you're going to be a DJ and they disown you, you know?
Right. Yeah. That was it. So leading up to that,
right.
It was an interesting thing. Like I mentioned before, they never played electronic music. It seemed to me like they were never into electronic music. And I don't think that they were. And I don't think that they heard the right kind of electronic music. I think that might be why. Because for a while, like I heard electronic music, probably, you know, from age 8 onward. And it kind of became this guilty pleasure. I was a closeted EDM lover for several years of my life. I didn't want to, because whenever they would hear like electronic music or something that like was really interesting and stimulating for me, that was electronic, it wouldn't necessarily be like a positive response. It would usually be like, that's annoying, or that, you know, it sounds lifeless.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds cold. And so I felt guilty for liking that, but I couldn't articulate why I liked it to pose a valid argument. So I just kind of didn't talk about it for a while. And so I just so I got GarageBand when I was 12. Before that, I was playing around with this cheap MIDI sequencer program called Easy Beat, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
I think I started messing around with that when I was 9, just like piano roll stuff and just stock MIDI synthesizer sounds, you know.
That's early to start messing around with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the piano roll was definitely something that came that I had a head start with, put it that way. So then GarageBand came along, and it was kind of like the same thing, except now I can actually like use real instruments and process audio, use EQs and effects and stuff. And that's when I started to actually like make what I would consider like, you know, 4-to-the-floor dance music, really basic stuff. But I was on vacation with my parents in Georgia, I think. Yeah, when I was like 12 or 13 maybe. And I had a laptop and I was working on making a new song. And my relatives were there as well. And everyone was like, what are you doing? Let me hear what you're working on. Because you've been working on this thing for a while. And I was like, okay. So I played them some of the song and they were like, wow. That's very interesting from what I can recall. Right. I don't really know how they felt about it, but I think it was like around that time that my parents started to express that like, that's really cool that I'm doing that. And that was kind of like a weight off. And I felt like I could be myself. Right. You know, I like electronic music and my parents are cool with that. And they're supportive of me making it. They're not telling me to make like something that they like.
And eventually if you're not like part of a bigger community of peers that's making it or listening to it, right? Then I have to imagine it's, you know, you're really desperate for that approval at a certain point.
Yeah, I was on my own. And, you know, my parents didn't approve, then I don't know, I would just carry this weight, I think, of just feeling like I'm not doing something right.
That's the only child thing again, too, I think. It's all on you.
Yeah. So I'm glad that worked out the way that it did because, you know, it wasn't until like a couple years later that they actually expressed that they enjoyed listening to my music. Like they would listen to it without me having to play it for them. And that's a huge thing. That was a huge thing for me. And then, yeah, like in high school, I came across, so yeah, as far as influences go, I got really into like Aphex Twin and Square Pusher, the like IDM-y, glitchy stuff. Right before that, I discovered Infected Mushroom, and that was kind of like my transitional period between just like full-on trance music into like sound design, like real hardcore sound design as part of the composition. Infected Mushroom just blew my mind. I was like, I didn't know that you could do sounds like this and still have it be like a beautiful song. Right.
And still in that context of, it's a good point. I never thought about that. They're kind of one of the early ones that really combined that sort of more out there sound design, like the really gritty technical stuff with just, dance music that you might hear at a club, just four to the floor kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know how much that was being done before them.
Yeah, my first, so that was 2007. I got their album Vicious Delicious, and that was a huge inspiration for me because it has the best of both worlds. I think of it as that. It's like, it's stimulating on like a visceral and emotional level because, it's got a solid beat, a solid groove, which is like the visceral aspect. I think there are three kind of, I don't really know what you would call them, but like three dimensions to music, like physical, emotional, and mental, where groove and the beat is like the physical or like the visceral. Yeah. It induces like, primal emotions.
Yeah. Lizard brain shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then emotional would be like chord progressions and melody. It's like moving emotion, essentially.
Right.
And then the mental, which is like cerebral, stimulating, technical, and that kind of, I don't know. It's not like a hard set categorization, but I like to think of it as like if you have a balance between those three things, like a solid groove, a solid harmonic
sensibility,
yeah, and something that is also like stimulating mentally. Like I really like IDM. I think is just pretty much just all like cerebrally prioritized.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I can almost imagine, if you had some kind of Venn diagram, like you could see where each one of them was on that.
Yeah. So I think well-rounded music has a balance of all three of those things. And it's subjective too. It's like, lyrics could be all three of them.
Right. Yeah, it's very broad. I know what you're saying. And it's interesting to me to talk about, when we talk about concepts like this, how do you apply that to the sort of nitty gritty actually making a song, right? Because that's to me, such a different experience when you're trying to be less intellectual, right? And you're trying to sort of just embrace whatever the vibe is, whatever is just on your mind in that moment and keep it very pure. So for you, is that something you think about of sort of how to achieve that while kind of not thinking about it?
Yeah. Lately, like over the past couple years, that has been a much more conscious theme for me, as far as like being a songwriter, producer. Because, like back in the day, I don't think it was as big of a deal, and the reason why is because I didn't know so much. Like there was a time where I didn't know music theory; everything was just intuitive by ear. And I remember when I learned how music theory worked, like when I was 15, 16, it kind of like broke me for a period of time. I was like, wait, all these ideas that I have in my head that I'm hearing, I could just break it down into these like really dumb, simple concepts, and they're like all kind of the same. Like, so it felt like it devalued that because I was too focused on the significance of theory, like the concept, and not really like. Well, the emotionality as a whole.
Sure. And then if you have an idea, but it's not sort of theory approved, then it's like, well,
I'm lost.
Is this a valid idea anymore? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It kind of feels like something's wrong. Something's wrong with it. Eventually, over time, I with the theory thing, I kind of grew out of that. But then when it comes to like the technical aspects, in the beginning, like when I first started making bass music, for instance, and getting really technical sound design stuff, most of my sounds were just happy accidents. Like I knew the basics of synthesis. I was dabbling with that since I was like 13, but when it comes to like heavy processing, I didn't understand. It took a while for me to understand like concepts like phase or how like FM worked, or like convolution or like multiband compression. I didn't know about multiband compression, I think, until like 2012, actually. But all that stuff. And So pretty much I would just like load up massive presets and just like completely just tweak all the knobs until I understood how it worked. And that was this case with any synth. I am pretty much just completely self-taught just from exploring just almost every single day for like the past decade.
Well, and if you were a kid who is interested in electronics and that sort of thing, I mean, that really tracks for me, right? Because that's just sort of an application of that interest.
Totally. I think one of the reasons why I like creating electronic music so much and just have this endless, is because I have this endless desire to just explore new things. I love music and I love science growing up, but there never really seemed to be a convergence of the two until electronic music, and particularly producing electronic music, where it's like, okay, I can understand the concepts of like electrical engineering and signal flow and physics and that sort of stuff with, you know, the right brain stuff, which is music. And now I can combine the two using synthesizers, and it's just so exciting because it's like, for the longest time I just thought those were two completely separate things. Growing up I was like, okay, if I am going to be a musician, it's going to be like winning the lottery if I'm actually going to be a, you know, like a touring musician making my own music and stuff. It seemed just totally out of the picture, and that's what I was told by. I was told that by my parents. I was told that by my friends. I was told by my friends' parents. Pretty much everyone I knew just said that this is really cool that you're making music and stuff, but it's like, what are you going to do it for a real job? And so the other thing, the other side of that was like, okay, I have passion for science. And that was kind of in a way, that was kind of like the plan A for me for the longest time. I was like, okay, music is my passion, or music is my hobby, but science is going to be my career.
Right.
So pretty much all throughout, you know, elementary school, all the way up to like my last year of high school, I was like, I'm going to be some kind of scientist.
Right.
And
how did that change?
Yeah, it was the last year of high school. I was a senior, and that was when I released my first album, Minimality. I burned a couple CDs, and I just wanted to hand them out to friends. And then it's other people, like other students, you know, acquaintances of mine started to hear about it and said that they really liked it or they wanted a copy. And I was like, okay. So I started giving, you know, I started getting my album out there in school. And at that time, I was torn between going to school for, what was it? I was torn between going to school for, I think, acoustic engineering. That was kind of like the middle ground that I thought I was going to take. You know, something a little more sciencey, but still, you know, involving music.
Yeah, still working with sound.
Yeah, man, it's been so long ago. It's hard for me to like recall specifically. But anyway, a classmate heard the album and he was like, "Dude, this stuff is really good. My cousin is a promoter in Baltimore, and he could get you some shows." And I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, sure, that's cool, man. Yeah. Right. Have him hit me up then. I really didn't, I don't know. I didn't believe him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like, I think a few months later where I actually got hit up by this guy, and he was like, "Hey, I heard your stuff from my cousin, and it's really good. And you know, have you ever played shows before?" I'm like, "Whoa!" And then he started to introduce me to like the other artists that he was managing, and then that's kind of how I got involved with the Baltimore scene. And I guess I didn't really play my first show there until about like a year later. It was just kind of like networking and scoping out how the industry worked, and that was kind of my first impression of the electronic music scene. Like that was kind of like the first time that I heard of it and am actually networking with people in it.
Right.
And so that was a totally new thing. And I was like, okay, this seems to be where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And that's so interesting, man, because of course then you would wouldn't be thinking about it as a career if you weren't even that aware that this scene existed, right?
Yeah.
But then for you to have made a whole album that clearly was something you were passionate about and was good enough to have that scene sort of sight unseen, just want you to come in and be a part of it. It's a really interesting path, man, just to be so isolated from it and get to the point where you've already put out an album before you're even aware of it, you know?
Yeah, dude. And I think about it sometimes and I feel like if it was any other time or any other era, I don't think that would have worked out. I feel like it was a fluke, man. Like I feel like I came in right before like bass music and EDM started to rise in the eyes of the mainstream.
Yeah.
At just the right time, at just the right skill level. I mean, I was producing for like 5 years before then. And I feel like I just had the skill level enough to actually like make a solid impression with within this thriving scene. Yeah, I feel like I just caught on as soon as it was on the rise. Well, I don't think I would have really made it. Any other
I
time.
mean, that makes sense, man. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it did seem like, you know, after those first couple self-released albums, you know, I know that another sort of pivoting moment or level up moment, whatever you want to call it, was the Seven Lions remix contest that you won in 2013. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it sort of seemed like it really started to move quickly. Was that, did it feel like that at the time?
So, yeah, it did. But it wasn't a single turning point. Like, I guess here's the
it never
overall,
is, right?
Yeah, at least to the artist, you know, maybe to the audience it is. For me, I started off, so I decided to, after I got that, you know, the understanding the EDM scene, I decided to just take my chances and go to college for music production, just to see how it goes. I only stuck with it for 1 year because during that time I started getting shows, and at that time I also got hit up by some labels. I got hit up by this small label out of Australia called Atom Recordings, and I released a song called The Essence on a compilation album with a bunch of other larger artists. And Excision had his eye on this release, this compilation. It wasn't until the last semester of the year of college of 2012 that I got hit up by Excision's manager telling me that he was interested in like releasing like an EP on Excision's label. And I'm like, this is freaking huge.
Right.
And then at that time, I also got in contact with BT, and that was huge too. And so everything kind of started pointing like, maybe I should like really put all my time and effort into this, at least for a year. So I took a leave of absence of school just to put all my time and effort into making just a bunch of music, you know, releasing on Excision's label and then networking with other artists. And then, yeah, it just kind of just one step to the next, I think, 2012, did I release? I don't know, man. It was a long time ago. But basically, each one of those steps were like huge jumps for me. And the Seven Lions, winning the Seven Lions contest, that was a huge jump. I mean, I was a fan of Seven Lions at that time. It was interesting because I started combining like, you know, trancey music, which is kind of what I first started out with that I really liked, you know, that emotional, melodic, high energy stuff with dubstep, which is the more technical, heavy, bassy stuff. That was kind of a natural combination for me that I don't know, like it wasn't something that I was trying to emulate at the time. And then I heard about like Seven Lions and then Xylent and Skrillex, who were all kind of doing similar things, particularly Xylent and Seven Lions. They were hugely influential to me because that kind of validated. It's like, okay, yeah, that's they get it. They're combining both of those worlds in their own way. And it was super inspirational. So yeah, the Seven Lions thing happened, and then pretty much at the same time, Monster Cat had their eyes on me. I don't really know how. I think it was from the EDM network, which was dubstep.net at the time. They reposted something that I released from the previous label, and then they were affiliated with Monster Cat, and then it's just like all this stuff, all these opportunities just came in, and I was just like eating them all up. And so each one of those steps just really felt like a huge leap for me.
Man. Yeah, and it's so funny how that can snowball like that, because I laugh about this a lot with my own manager, because when someone is totally unknown and totally just starting off, kind of it's like this game of chicken where no one wants to be the first one to do something with something that's totally unproven. But then the second that happens, then all of a sudden everyone else sees like, oh, well, if this person is working with that person, then I got to get in on this soon before it's too late. It's such a funny game.
That's so interesting, because it's almost like it's self-induced. It's like maybe the thing that the artist is doing, not to discredit them, but maybe the thing that the artist is doing isn't as special as to most people as it is to that one person that decides to hype it up. And then because of the affiliation of that one person, or how other people see the value of that person, the person who's hyping it up, then there is value to whatever the thing is. I mean, it could be whatever, I think.
Right.
With the right branding and hype, the right people pushing it, you can blow anything up.
Dude, that's the thing. That's all it takes. If you can have one person sort of see the vision of what you're trying to do, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, that can be all it takes.
Yeah.
I think it's this weird human nature thing where, if just sort of instinctually as humans, if we see someone else excited about something, it makes you want to understand it more. Yeah.
It's like a mob mentality also.
Yeah.
I think, if someone is really interested in something that is, I mean, we're all kind of working as like a collective consciousness. I think, if someone's really stoked about something, other people need to, it sparks curiosity. Like why?
Right.
Even if it's really controversial. Like people need to explore it and understand it. That's just like human nature, I think. It's just how the mind works.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And, you mentioned, people like Seven Lions and BT, and those are both people, and there's, plenty of other people in your career too that you sort of seem to keep coming back to and keep working with or intersecting with at various points. And I wanted to ask you about that, because I think that's not always a typical thing to sort of have this, sort of loose network of people that over the years you keep reconnecting with at different points. And for you, is that a conscious thing? Is that just a comfort thing? Where do you think that stems from?
Well, I think for me, it's kind of an unconscious thing. Regarding the Seven Lions thing, I mean, after winning the Seven Lions contest, I didn't, I wasn't really in contact with the guy. He just seemed to kind of be on, in his own world.
Yeah.
Hard to get in touch with, of course, through social media and stuff. But there wasn't really anything that we had that really, we never clicked on anything, It wasn't until just a few years ago that, I don't know if Twitter is what sparked it or what, but someone suggested that I collab with Seven Lions, and I just responded, and they tagged both of us in, and I just responded, hey, I'm down if Jeff is down, Jeff Seven Lions.
Yep.
And a week later, he hits me up and asks me, he's like, hey, do you want to remix my song Ocean? And I'm like, this is crazy, because I haven't talked to this guy in years. Like, why? I didn't think that he liked me. To be honest, I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I remixed it, and I put all my, I put everything that I could into it at the time. And he said that he loved the remix. And then the next thing he asked me was, do I want to go on tour? And do you want to do a collab together? And I'm just like, it's full circle, but there's nothing really tying it. I mean, I didn't do anything. Right. I just been doing my own thing and just responded to a dumb Twitter comment. And it just happened. So I don't know, man. It's weird how stuff like that happens. Like with BT, I mean, we know each other personally. Like I've been to his house multiple times, and we would just like kick it with like just geeking out on stuff. And he helped me. Oh man, BT has helped me like on the low with a lot of stuff. BT kind of validated the whole like me doing whatever I want to thing, and not feeling the pressure to conform to a single sound. Because I mean, you listen to his music and he does everything, and he's happy, and he's one of the most joyous. Like, he's an extremely just selfless, joyous person, and super inspiring to be around. I'm just like, man, he's living like the ideal life of an artist. I didn't realize that it's like you could be super successful as an electronic music artist and be this happy with life. And so it was just super inspiring always to be around him. And so, yeah, he, in a sense, was kind of like a mentor to me. And I mean, we've just been like on and off in touch throughout the years. But yeah, last, actually like 2018, I think I just reached out to him and he was like, hey, I got a project. I'm working on my, latest album, and I want to do a song with you. I got this awesome vocal. What do you think? And that became The Light Is Always On, which is released on his last album.
Right.
Which is a collaboration between the two of us. And so, yeah, it's just interesting how we just like paths just converge and then diverge, and then I mean, there's really no intention other than just like just going with the flow and just feeling out what's right and not. And I think it's really important to make connections with people that don't just serve you on a career end. Like, it's important to make friends with people that you actually like, regardless of like how successful they are or how much money they make or what they can do for you. Yeah. And I think if you stick to that, you're just going to have a way better time. Everything is going to harmonize so much better in your life.
Oh, absolutely, man. And I mean, listening to what you were just saying, what I took from that too is, these are people you knew for years and years, and it doesn't sound like at any point you were trying to get something from them, right? Yeah. It's just, you just maintain the relationship, you do what you do, they do what they do, and then at a certain point, if it makes sense, there's that intersection, right? As opposed to what I think happens a lot of the time, which is just, people sort of get in their own head about it, or you just get so desperate of like, well, I know this person, and if we work together, then this could happen. And you sort of build these fantasies rather than just sort of being a regular person, that people want to be around.
Yeah. You kind of start losing touch with like seeing these people as people, and more so as like devices or services. Yeah. Yeah, man. I think having a mutual interest in each other's work and vision plays a huge role too. Because there may be an artist that's like huge that I really like, but I don't feel comfortable just reaching out to them and being like, hey, I think we can make something awesome together. Because I don't, and this is kind of like a me thing, I don't feel like I have enough to prove or to serve them for them to see the value in me. But I think that really just comes down to that first the first social barrier that needs to break. Because like with Infected Mushroom, I mean, I was a huge fan of them ever since I was 13. And then I ended up touring with them just out of the blue. That was another weird thing that happened. It's like these guys were my idols for so many years. And then their manager hits me up on Facebook and it's like, hey, would you do you want to be a supporting act for Infected Mushroom Tour? And I was like, this guy's an imposter. He's just totally shitting me right now. Like, this is just a prank. And I'm just like, yeah, sure. Contact my manager. I just got management at the time. Contact my manager and discuss details. And I just forgot about it. Like a month later, they get back to me. My manager gets back to me and he's like, hey man, this is what's going on. And I'm like, so it's real. Okay. And then I go on tour with them. Well, I play the first show with them and I get to meet them. And it's just such a weird situation because like, I feel starstruck. And I've been fans of these guys for like almost 10 years. And, and now I'm like in the same place with them. And now they're super cool people, thankfully. And, you know, the breaking the ice was super easy. And I just realized like these are awesome people that if regardless of what our careers are, I would want to hang out with these people just like for fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have you realized, or is this something that you can process, that probably there's a new crop of people who look at you that way to a certain extent?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't really think about it that often because I always kind of like, at least lately, I kind of think of myself as like, I don't want to be, you know, if someone is like starstruck or whatever and trying to interact with me, it makes me feel really weird.
Sure, of course.
By default, like my inclination is like, I kind of, like I want to get all the glory of having that, you know, of being that celebrity for someone. Without all of the weird socialness. I just want to be a person, and I just want them to be a person. So I have a Discord server, and I think that's a place for me where most of the people there just treat me like another person, and as do I. I just treat them like other people, and we have common interests, and that's why we're in the same place.
Discord's the best, man. Yeah, I've got a Discord kind of based around this show too, and it's the same vibes. It's just cool. People being people. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I would prefer it. It's like I want to be able to just go. I just want to be myself, and I just want people to like be themselves too.
Sure,
it just feels the most. It feels healthy.
Yeah,
you know?
It does feel healthy, man. Absolutely, and you know, every artist has had that experience with just an awkward meet and greet or an awkward, you know, front of stage moment, all that kind of thing where, and I've been that kid too. Like I can relate to that. You know, I remember going to metal shows when I was 15, waiting outside a tour bus to, you know, meet some rock star that I was obsessed with at the time. And of course, like I don't have anything useful to say to them. You know, it's just, you know, I didn't even know what I wanted out of the interaction at the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what I want out of the interactions with, like, you know, these people that I'm huge fans of.
Right. Like, yeah, exactly. And oftentimes, you know, it can have the opposite effect. There's that thing about never meet your heroes, all that, because of course, if you build somebody up into larger than life, you know, nobody can live up to that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also with when someone builds up an artist to someone larger than life, it's like they become like mentally overexposed. And what I mean by that is like they're more distorted than if they didn't hyperfixate on this person and fill in the blanks, you know?
Right.
And that can be, it's almost like the fan is putting a mask on the artist so that it makes it harder for there to be any real connection.
That's a great way to put it, actually. Yeah. But in doing that, you're actually making it harder to get to know the person you want to get to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. It's so bizarre, man.
Yeah, I mean, you get it. It's interesting because like we just started, we've never talked before. Like I literally just met you.
Right, yep.
And I don't feel like I don't feel like this is. It feels balanced. It's like I feel like I'm just having a normal conversation with just like a cool person.
Yeah. Oh, the feeling is
Someone I'm
very
friends
mutual.
with.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that idea of balance you were talking about earlier. When you've intersected with artists you've looked up to and worked with people multiple times over the course of your career. It's that same thing. There has to be that balance of you're both people get something from the exchange. Mm-hmm. Neither one is trying to, pull it out of the other person. It's not sort of a dependency as much as it is, I don't know the right word, but it's coming together to create something that was more than the individual pieces.
Yeah, synergy.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
But it's natural. It's not forced. It's like we don't have to follow a script. And that's also, I appreciate you not going through like, okay, what is your favorite artist, that kind of that kind of interview process.
Oh, fuck that! Yeah,
that's tough for me too. It just feels contrived, and it's interesting because I think the same kind of thing applies with, in a lot of cases with art. It's like you kind of have to find this. You kind of have to find this flow. In order to find like a creative flow, for instance, it's like the more you try and force creativity, the more it's going to resist. The more it's going to be harder to actually like get into a flow, I find. And I think it's more about cultivating an environment that feels relaxed and inspiring.
Yeah. Leaving the space for it to happen, right?
Yeah. Even like when I'm composing a song, if I go in with too much of an intention for like what the song is going to be, or like how it's going to be received, or like determining what the song is going to be before I make the song, essentially, it's a struggle. It
doesn't work. It doesn't work, man. Yeah, the song will tell you what song it's going to be, right? In a weird way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's funny because like I'll be working on like a remix or something that has like a deadline, something that I actually need to do that has a purpose, and that's tough to do because it's like, okay, it needs to be done. Sometimes, I'll be working on it, I'll just be stuck, and then I'll have some other musical idea that's totally unrelated to the song, and I'm like, I'm just gonna open up a new session real quick, just like take a little break and write this down just so I don't forget it. Some goofy little stupid thing, and then the next thing I know, that becomes the new song. Like I have no intention to make that anything. I'm just literally just digging around, playing with synths and stuff, and because there isn't that pressure and that. I guess, because I'm not conforming myself to I'm not drawing out a path for myself and then trying to follow it.
Sure.
I'm just, in an unknown place with a flashlight, just like finding the best, finding my way around the darkness. And that seems to get me to the destination way faster. And I also feel a lot better about the end result because I don't know. It's just more unique. It's more interesting. It's
more pure,
fun.
Right? I mean,
pure. Exactly.
It actually makes me think about maybe that's a good way to talk about your Alchemy album that just dropped this year, because that is it's a great album, first of all, but it's a focused piece of work, right? And it's this sort of more, whatever words you want to use, ambient or down tempo, chill, whatever words. But, it's a focused effort. And so I wonder, when you make a project like that and put out a project like that, how does it come together if what you're striving for is sort of not to force any one sound or style?
Right. So here's the thing about Alchemy. I released all of those songs, except the first track, as singles between 2013 and 2015.
Oh, so okay.
It was
I didn't
not
realize
supposed.
That.
It was not supposed to be an album at first. Yeah. So what happened was, my manager, he also manages Liquid Stranger, who manages Wakan, and there's a new sub-label of Wakan called Susquan, which is like chill down tempo stuff. Liquid Stranger and I, it's like he knows my music. We're tight as people. He heard the song Alchemy, because that was an unreleased thing that I just just had in my management Dropbox folder.
Sure.
And he was looking for artists and new music to release for the new launch of this label. And my manager just sent him over the song and was like, what do you think of this? As would this be appropriate? And he really liked it. And he's like, is there more chill stuff by Austin? And yeah, I did, but it was already released, self-released for free. The thing was, it was self-released for free download, which was a blessing in disguise, because then we could actually, hide them, take them all down, remaster them, and then re-release them as an album. And yeah, I mean, I felt weird about doing it, and I still kind of feel weird about doing it, because it's like fans that have been following me for a long time, like hardcore fans that listen to all my stuff, not just like my heavy bass music. They know these songs. They've known them for years. It's like nostalgic for them at this point, and re-releasing them as like a new thing was I felt weird about it, because it just didn't feel like really like a new thing. There's all this hype. This is going to be like the debut release of the label launch,
right?
Of Liquid Stranger's new label. That's so big that I didn't feel like the album was significant enough to really satisfy that impact. But I mean, there were a couple people that were like, it's only one new song. What the hell? But the vast majority of people, these are new fans. This is a completely new audience for me,
right.
and people are responding to it so well. And I want to go back to talking about so that was a special case. That was like the only time where something I already released was just re-released. But things like that happened. Like for my album, Divinoam, for instance, that is a bunch of songs. There is a cohesive sound amongst them, but it's not, they're multi-genre. It's a super colorful album. Those songs I created just over the course of, like 3-year span. I don't have intention. Up to now, I have not had any specific intention to have a song for an album or like to tell a story. Usually what happens is I'm feeling certain ways, like different ways emotionally. And when I create a song based off of that emotion that I'm feeling, every song that I create where I'm revisiting that emotion kind of starts to, I'm able to kind of piece together the songs like it's a puzzle. Everything that I make is almost completely just random until I take a look back on it. Like it doesn't it's just chaotic until retrospect. And then I can see, wow, I could piece together a story here. Same with the chill music, from the Alchemy LP. I was creating chill music without any intention to, make any money off of it. I mean, I made them for free releases. Right. I was feeling a certain way, and I just wanted to put that into sound. You just string them all together, and it creates this cohesive thing. I mean, yeah. I think the rest is just apophenia, which is like, finding meaning in something that is ultimately chaotic. And that's what humans do. It's like we're always going to find order in something that's disorder. That's what the brain strives to do.
Of course,
all the time,
always, with everything. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I think it's a great time to put out a collection of songs that sound like this, like in this climate. I mean, it's extremely appropriate. I think people need that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And, on the flip side of it, if you were releasing an album of only dance floor bangers, maybe this is kind of a weird time to do that.
Yeah. It would seem a little strained, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I mean, I think you're right, man. Looking back on it, you can kind of see those connections and maybe what you feel as sort of random creation, maybe it's not as random as you think, right? And maybe if we look back over a long enough timeline, there's sort of, maybe it's tied to emotions as well. Like you said, maybe, if I'm in this kind of mood, or, if these things are going on in my life, what kind of music was I making in those situations? I bet if I looked back at my own output, there's probably some through lines there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, if we're just, there are, the music that we make is a culmination of, it's basically just a huge mashup of all of our influences. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And the more that we listen to, the more that we have in our arsenal to prioritize and create with. And I think that that's kind of where the voice comes from. It's like our own unique voice is really just our emotional interpretations of the music around us and the world around us. We're taking things that resonate with us and we are recontextualizing them and creating this collage of how we feel about the external world or how the external world is resonating us internally. And then we're putting that back out as a cohesive thing. Like this is my collage of how I see the world, essentially. That's kind of how I think music is.
I love that, man, because that breaks down this myth of the sort of genius, unknowable artist who's just pulling things out of thin air, right?
Yeah.
And because that really, with maybe a few exceptions, that really doesn't exist. I just love how you put it, because that's all it is, man. We're a collection of our influences, and I don't just mean musical influences. I mean, you know, everything. Our childhood, the people we grew up with, the friendships we maintain, all of that informs the choices you make on a day-to-day level when you go sit down and play a chord, right?
Yeah.
It's so weird to think about, but I think you're absolutely right.
And that's also why I think people have different tastes in like drastically different tastes in music, because everyone has a completely different perspective on life based off of their prior experiences. I mean, it comes down to how our brains are wired, which is everyone's is completely different. It's like a fingerprint, and who knows? Someone may resonate with something that you don't, and vice versa. And they may be very similar as people or in a very similar, you know, environment, but we may have completely different tastes in music. And I mean, there are things that you like that I don't, and vice versa. And that's just how it is for everyone, regardless of how similar someone is, just due to the fact that we have different, we're perceiving this world from two different perspectives.
Yeah. And I think there's even, this is maybe getting a little heady at this point, but I think there's even more levels to that, because, you know, you could like something that I don't like, but then if you make something that's influenced from that, then I might like that thing that you made, this sort of iteration of that influence. And so in that way, you're connecting a listener to something they may not have liked the original form of. I don't know, man. There is something, the more I talk to people about this kind of stuff, the older I get, the longer I stay in the music game. A big part of it, I'm starting to realize, is that sort of just connection with people that goes deeper than words and goes deeper than sort of the intellectual thought level. Mm-hmm. Which for me, I think sort of instinctively is something probably from even a young age I was always trying to get to. Like even just the way music made me feel when I was younger, that's still sort of what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, same. Yeah, especially like when your mind is so unfiltered and pure. It's like we don't. I miss the times when, like, sometimes I wish I could just listen to music and not know anything about music at all, because it would be the purest. My left brain is just like that. This is how that sound was made, and like this, they should have changed this, and it would have been better in this way, and just trying to just dissect the entire thing in real time takes away from the holistic experience and the emotional experience that you get from it.
Are there things for you, it could be music or maybe even something else, where you're still just a fan in that pure way, where you don't, you know, something where you can just enjoy it and you don't have to break it down?
Lyrics, I think. Like it doesn't have, like, not necessarily in electronic music. I think in electronic music, oftentimes lyrics are a little bit more contrived. But I'm just talking about like in general.
Yeah.
Like really well written lyrics. That's something that I feel like I've only scratched the surface of. And when executed right with like the right voice, it's pretty otherworldly, and I don't understand it on an intellectual level. Like it makes a lot of sense emotionally, and I'm just like, damn, that's so powerful. I never would have thought that, you know, the use of this sequence of words in this way with this inflection and note, like illuminates a part of me that I've never felt or seen before, but it's there, and it's a very real thing. And that's really inspiring and really fascinating for me.
I love
that is something that I want to explore more, like for my own stuff. I want to.
But see, then you're going to break it down, man. Then you.
I have to, dude. That's the thing. It's like before this, it was like visual art and like animation and stuff. I didn't know I didn't know anything about that several years ago, and then I started. But I was like really captivated by some of the crazy like Beeple. You're familiar with Beeple's art?
Not much, but I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, his stuff from several years ago that was like way less political and like weird is really impressive. Like it has really spoke to me. And I had no idea how that shit was done. I was like, this is way beyond me. And then I started learning how it was done. I learned the software, and then I started creating my own things and creating my own animations, and it's much less of a mystery now. And I think I have a much higher standard for, like, I have a much higher threshold of what I like because of that. That's the thing. I kind of have this impulse to, like, if there's anything that I'm really interested in that I can kind of see the door to exploring, it's hard to stop myself from exploring that. Right.
Well, and if that's fun and if that deepens your enjoyment of it, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And I mean, I guess, you know, as we kind of start wrapping it up, that makes me wonder, you know, for you now, I saw when I knew I was going to talk to you that, you know, you just put up a post that it's been 10 years since you started this project, which is a big milestone, and you've released a crazy amount of music in that time. You've been very prolific, worked with a lot of people, done a lot of things. You know, what in 10 years, like at this point, what keeps you here? What's the most exciting part, the most fun part of what you do? What do you get up and you're just stoked to do more than anything else?
A specific thing that's hard to say because it definitely changes per day.
Sure.
Sometimes in the middle of the day, my priority goes from I need to explore, like I need to explore a very specific type of sound, or explore a very specific type of sound design or a type of style, to like, I don't know, I want to like go outside and like take pictures of the sky. Like that becomes more of a priority. So my priorities are constantly just changing and whatnot. But I think the underlying thing for me is kind of just the blind faith of knowing that there is still an infinite amount of things to explore that will excite the hell out of me.
That's really cool, man. I like that. Knowing that it's out there, that you don't have to rush to find it, but that you're never going to run out of it.
Yeah, like it's always there. Like writer's block, you know, I think the whole thing about writer's block, I can talk forever about specifically this, but I think...
Do you get it a lot?
I used to, but I think it really comes down to a perspective thing. Like for me, writer's block is what I've concluded from my personal experience of it is it's what happens when your current output or whatever you're currently doing is not exceeding your expectations within a certain amount of time. And therefore that is inducing anxiety, which is making you less creative and more analytical, which, you know, fuels that downward spiral. For me, writer's block, you just have to relax. You just have to relax and just keep, you want to do something that you don't think makes sense to do, because it's always those times where like happy accidents will strike, or something will inspire you, or it's like you'll gain a new perspective on something. And it's really hard to trick your brain into, you know, not analyzing things.
Right.
You kind of want to force yourself into just, you know, if you think you're on a roll with something, sometimes just forcing yourself into something that's completely different and weird will give you results that have a much broader, that give you a much broader scope of the whole thing than, which inevitably I think is more fulfilling.
Sure, and that's an ego thing too, right? If you're trying too hard to control the outcome, you're sort of self-sabotaging yourself a lot of the time.
Yeah. So when I'm producing, I mean, it's a thing that constantly happens. Like I'm constantly fluctuating back and forth, but I think it's just once you do it enough, like I've been doing this for like 10 years, exploring that phenomenon. I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with, I feel like I'm pretty balanced between like knowing when to like back off with analytical stuff or like back off with like really conceptual stuff to then focus on technical stuff and vice versa. It's a balancing act. It's just like, you know, just gotta balance both sides of the brain, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is sort of a broad question, but are you comfortable in general? Like, are there goals, either like professionally, musically, or even just personally, you know, things that in 10 years you've sort of, you know, seen them but not gotten there yet, things you haven't done yet, you know, anything that springs to mind?
Yeah, definitely. I've always had the idea to do like a fully immersive experience, like something like now virtual reality and all of how rapidly technology is increasing. Yeah. It's like, it's almost like I don't even really want to like I really don't want to set a pin for a specific goal, because like that's just going to be way out the window in the next couple of years as far as like technologically speaking and the possibilities of that. So I want to do something that's like really immersive, that is kind of combines vision and sound in a way that hasn't been done before. Yeah. Synesthetically, kind of like I have mild synesthesia when it comes to sound, and that is definitely an inspiration when it comes to visual pairings with sound. I get really frustrated when, like, for instance, I'll go to a show and I'll see a visual that is not synced to the beat. It's like, I would rather just not see anything and listen to the song. And then sometimes when the visual is on point, then it's like, whoa, this is almost like these two senses, they're becoming one thing. I'm almost experiencing like a singular entity. Right. And that kind of thing, that's where the synergy happens, at least for me. And I want other people to experience that too. And I feel like doing something like some kind of 3D immersive or like 360-degree star dome kind of experience with sound that is also musical and emotional and like visceral and cerebral and visual. All of these things. I want to find the perfect harmony between all of these things, and yeah, basically just like express my inner world with maximum bandwidth. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And you know, the visual world, that's a whole nother can of worms to open up, right? That goes back to that endless potential thing you were talking about. Yeah. That, you know, even if, which probably isn't going to happen, even if you felt like, I'm kind of done everything in music now, that doesn't matter, because there's still so much more you can bring into that world. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes when I'm just like uninspired with music, I'll just hop into like After Effects or Cinema, and then just start making visuals for like, and which will then inspire like the next song project. So that kind of thing, like having two different mediums to work in creatively has also been really important for me, to just like not burn out. It's like you just switch from one medium to the next. Another thing, I guess, like in 10 years. I mean, before then, ideally, but I want to do something that is not specific to electronic music. I kind of want to do like I don't even know what you'd call it, kind of like a soul searching endeavor where I I don't know,
a midlife crisis.
Yeah, like I kind of want that just for what it will do inspirationally.
Right.
But I've been thinking about, like, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I've been thinking about not doing electronic music, not forever, of course, but I want to make a whole work that is just me playing real instruments, because I know that I have the ability to. I can play piano decently. I can play guitar somewhat good. I know that if I just spent the time that I do in the DAW expressing myself through these instruments, that I'll be able to get good at them and be able to express myself in a very similar way, at least emotionally, which ultimately would make me feel is really all that matters. Like, if I can quell these inner things that I'm experiencing and express them through other mediums, I want to do that. So I think the next stage is to like do something like it'd be cool to do like a full album that's just all acoustic and me singing.
Oh, that'd be very cool. Have you done much singing on your own stuff?
I own a few songs. Divine, For You, Inflex, and my latest one, Answers, are all me singing. Yeah, there may be a couple more, but not actually like lyrical stuff, just like sound design stuff.
Sure.
But I feel like there's so much potential. Like I know how I want to sing, and I can feel that I'm able to. I just don't have the technique and the endurance down yet to really do that. And I don't want to reveal it too. I don't want to prematurely reveal that, you know? Right.
Yeah, man. You gotta break it all down, right? Figure out how all the pieces fit together and then come out with it. I love that.
So I think I am going to be taking vocal lessons pretty soon.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Well, and that's the thing. It's fun to be a beginner again, too. Not that you're a beginner, but it's fun to sort of feel like you're at the start. And we're coming back to this over and over. That pure childlike place, right? Where you don't know all the rules and probably you're doing some stuff wrong, but that's kind of why it's fun.
Yeah. And who knows? That may be that may spark the happy accident that opens up a new world to everyone, including myself. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful thought, man. I feel like we got to kind of end it on that.
Cool.
Well, this has been great. I mean, before we do, is there anything we didn't talk about? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything you want to let people know?
I still definitely have some more music coming out before the end of the year.
Nice.
As if 24 songs or however many wasn't enough.
I like that you just put them out, man. Though that's kind of, I mean, when I was looking back at your whole discography earlier today, it's just like, God damn, this guy dropped a lot of music over the years.
I have a lot to say, I guess.
That's great though, man, because I feel like some people, even people who do have a lot to say, sometimes they keep a lot of it in. And oftentimes producers I talk to who have done that for a while end up regretting it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was another thing that BT taught me. He said, it doesn't matter. Like, don't hold on to special songs for like the right time and the right label. Just like get as much out there as you can while you can, like while you're still like fresh in the scene. Yeah. And I'm really glad that he did that, because not only I think did that. As far as branding goes, I don't know. That I think that's a controversial thing for some people. But as far as like for my own well-being, just getting comfortable, just putting myself in front of people, putting different sides of me in front of people, like that in itself was really great, because I know some really brilliant artists who don't release their own music for insecurity or just like whatever the reason may be, and it hurts. It's like knowing that there are probably so many other brilliant artists, they can't hear their own brilliance, or there's something that is inhibiting them sharing that with the world. It's almost like an injustice to the world and themselves.
Right.
Because they're the only like they could be saving people's lives. I mean, that's what happens. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter like what kind of music or what kind of art you do. If you influence someone in a deep way, you have the ability to change their lives. And oftentimes that's what happens. Like all the praise and comments and stuff that I get on a daily basis, that's cool and that's great. But occasionally I'll get these messages where like I was on the brink of suicide and your music literally changed my perspective and saved my life or got me through something that I didn't think was possible, or like made me realize that I'm doing the wrong thing in my life. Those kind of responses, they really mean something. Like that's the kind of effect on people that makes my art valuable and that I really value the potential of. Like, that's the stuff that really means something, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And 100%, man. And that's, you know, I think coming to that from a place of gratitude is all you can really do, right? Because obviously the same way you can't plan for a sandstorm to be a hit. It's like you can't plan for the song you write to affect somebody's life years down the road, right?
Exactly. And that's why it doesn't really matter how you feel about it. I mean, it matters how you feel about the song. It's like, if you're intentionally making music that's just absolute shit, then it's like, I don't understand that. Maybe some people would be into that, but I mean, you're making a song for a reason. It's like you're feeling something in that moment. There's something that's driving you to do that. So at the end, you may put yourself through this mental loop like, this song isn't good. It never was good. But it's like, no, you're not giving your past self any credit for what they were expressing and feeling. It's almost like you need to, and that's why I'm not ashamed to have all of my old music from a decade ago on Spotify and SoundCloud. It's like, I'm not embarrassed by that. Yeah, it's definitely not the quality and what I would be doing now, but I need to respect and uphold the value that I had for what I was doing back then, like my past self. I need to respect my past self. And it's not for you to determine how someone interprets your music or your art. If it changes their lives, and even if you hate it, then if you're going to take the selfish route and prevent people from experiencing that, then man, you're doing some people a disservice, I think. Yeah,
and yourself, man. Like you said, I think that's exactly right. It's, you know, I think this is maybe a theme throughout this whole conversation is, you know, as much as we're able to take our own ego out of creating, that's the goal, right? That we'll never fully get there, but that's always the goal. Because like you said, obviously your past self, if you're putting a value judgment on it, then that's your ego in the moment. And if you're not letting other people tell you what the art means, that's also an ego thing, right?
That's true. Yeah. 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 Because it's just you having, you're becoming a control freak. You're right. It's like, that's cool for other things. I mean, I'm a control freak creatively, but once the song is out or once the thing is out, it's like, it's not for me to determine anymore. It's like, I did my job. I did my part, and now the world is going to do their part. Right. By experiencing it and, you know, doing whatever it needs to do.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's the thing. It doesn't mean anything, no matter how good we are, how hard we worked on it. It doesn't mean anything until the rest of the world interprets it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, man. Well, this has been fun, man. It's a great conversation. I really like this.
Yeah, same, dude. How long have we been talking for?
It's been like hour 40, hour 30.
Nice.
Something like that.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, dude, anytime. Thanks for doing this, man. That's fun.
It's a pleasure, man.
All right, dude. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right.
Peace, man.
Bye. right, that's the show. Shout out to Au5. Great to have you on, man. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Don't forget, Au5, he just put out a new song with Chime called Voidwalkers. It's out right now, and he's got a new collab coming out with Tritonal this Friday. So hit the link in the description, go follow Au5, go grab all the new music, and keep up to date with everything he's doing. You can follow me as well at Willy Joy or at back-to-back-pod on all social media, or you can reach out to me directly. back-to-back-pod@gmail.com is the email address. That was good. That was fun. That felt good to do. How you guys feeling? How are you doing out there? If you're doing good, if you want to, talk about any of the ideas you just heard, if it sparked something in you, come join the Discord, the Back-to-Back Discord. The link for that is in the description of this episode as well. And come tell me what you thought. You can come tell me, other guests that you'd like to see on this show. If you're a music producer, come share your music with us. We've got a whole section where people can post up what they're working on, get feedback, and collaborate with other awesome producers. And just in general, it's a great little group of folks we got over there. So come join the Discord, come say what up, go follow Au5, all that good shit. You guys know how this works. I hope you're doing well out there. If you're in the United States, I hope you are getting through this election day, this election week. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm pre-recording this, so I have no idea what's going to happen. But I am hopeful. I am optimistic. Hopefully these words don't age too poorly. But just in general, man, shout out to everybody out there who went out and voted. If you haven't yet and you're listening to this on Tuesday, go vote. You still got time. And just in general, man, shout out to everybody who's been listening. Shout out to everybody who's been supporting. I love you guys. This has been a wild year. And I don't know if I could have gotten through it not as well without being able to talk to you guys every single week. So that's it. Take care of yourselves this week. Be good to yourselves. Take care of each other. Take care of the people around you. And I will talk to you next Tuesday. I love you guys. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.